Hello, welcome back to Fred, literally back in the shed, of course. I just thought I'd do a follow-up video because I'm getting so many comments recently in the last couple of weeks with the lockdown situation. There are so many people that are coming back to CB, as you would have seen on the last 305 video, and also a lot of people that are showing an interest in coming back to CB, or perhaps doing CB for the first time. And yeah, I'm getting lots of questions about equipment, things like that. So I just thought I'd make this video. I thought I'd try and answer some of the comments all in one go and sort of save myself a lot of typing time. I've only been back on CB a very short time. I came back in 2014 when sideband became legal and AM became legal. I'm in no way an expert. I hope that comes across on the videos. I always try and be honest with you and just say that I'm an enthusiastic sort of amateur CBer. I haven't got the kind of knowledge and experience of a lot of the people that I talk to on CB. I'm vastly more experienced than me. I try not to be that. And yeah, I'm going to sort of go through some of the radios that I'm going to sort of suggest here. These are radios that I've actually copied people on air and listened to the audio from these radios, so that's my opinion. You might have your own opinion, and I hope you have, and if you can think of a radio that would probably suit someone coming back that I haven't mentioned, please put it in the comments, and we can then share that and, you know, help people come back to radio. Don't just hit the thumbs down because you might not agree with the radios that I'm recommending. I've kind of noticed this recently. This is something else that's as the lockdown has happened, I've got a lot more views on my videos, which is fine, but also the thumbs down count has gone up, and it kind of amuses me. It does make me chuckle when I sort of see the thumbs down, because people that thumb YouTube videos down, they kind of feel in some way they're damaging or hurting the video. And in fact, look, it's the complete opposite, because YouTube logarithms see a thumbs up and a thumbs down exactly the same. They just see it as interaction. That's all they're interested in. Same as a comment. A good or bad comment makes no difference. It's all interaction. So if you thumb a video down or you thumb it up, you're making the video more popular. So it always amuses me when people think they're doing it harm and they're just making it more popular. Now, I know a lot of you have seen my videos on the 305. One thing that I've said right at the beginning, if you're thinking about coming back onto CB, it does help to do a little bit of research on your local area just to sort of see who's around, and there are plenty of CB chat forums on Yahoo groups, on Facebook, on WhatsApp and things like that. Join some of the CB groups and chat forums and ask the questions out there. You know, I live in Cornwall, for example. You know, is there anyone on around my area? And see what comes back. Just test the water before you take the plunge. But ultimately, you will have to take the plunge and buy a CB radio and set up to really find out if there are people in your area. You might get lucky, especially if you live around a large town, sort of London, anything like that. You'll go on to CB, you'll find people straight away. If you're a little bit more out in the sticks, then yeah, you might have to work that little bit harder. And that is one reason why that I know it's a bigger outlay, but I always recommend that you buy a sideband radio like this one here, for example, because at least if there's no local contacts, that does give you the option that when the skip comes in, you will be picking up sort of international sort of stations from Europe or even from America in the autumn. So yeah, it just gives you more options if you start straight away on the sideband radios. If you go just for an FM or a dual band AM FM radio, there's about more chance of you being disappointed, but I do understand that those radios are cheaper. Going to go through just some basic AM FM radios that I think are worth a look. I say this is my own personal opinion. Best thing about these, generally, these AM FM EU radio, is they are completely UK legal, and that might be important to you, and I fully understand that. But these radios, yeah, you've got the knowledge that you're not breaking any Ofcom regulations and you're not breaking the law. First one is the President Barry. Came out, I think it's about 18 months ago, something like that. Costs about £80. I've heard and sort of seen some great YouTube videos on this radio. It's hard to go wrong for £80. It just seems like a great radio. It comes with a really good mic. and seems absolutely awesome, and it's completely legal. Then there's the CRT radios, and these are the radios that I've heard on here. The first one is the CRT1, comes in at just over £50, typically £56. Yeah, I've copied a few people on 4-watt Paul, I think, came on CRT1, and the Viking, people like that. Great little radio. Absolutely fine. The only problem that I've got with this radio is that the microphone, although it's a good microphone, it's the same microphone on the CRT 9900, and that is a good microphone, but it is permanently fixed into the radio. You can't swap it out and change it at a later date, so that does kind of reduce your upgrade options. Another CRT little radio, considering it is the sort of update to the CRT one, is the CRT Millennium. It's even cheaper, typically around £45 in the UK. It does have a removable mic, but it is what I call the Yaesu sort of type internet type connection. Not so easy to change that at home. Those can be a little bit tricky to do, those connections. And the microphone that comes with it is very similar to the one that comes with standard CRT 6900, things like that. It's not as good as the mic that comes with the CRT one, but you have got the option to change it, and it's a cheap radio. Right, moving on to sideband radios, and this is where things get a little bit more interesting. Now, the first radio that I recommend, and I have been recommending this for a long time, is the CRT Superstar 6900N, and that comes in at about £150 in the UK. It's kind of your Ford Focus of sort of CB radios. It just does everything that you really want it to do. Power wise, it's got plenty of power that you need to get started. It'll do 40 watts on FM, which is plenty, and about 35 watts on sideband, and again, that is plenty enough power to get you started. The only sort of downside of the radio is the fact the microphone that comes with it, it's the same kind of microphone that comes with the cheaper CRT radios. I think it lets the radio down a little bit. There's definitely room for improvement with that mic. If you buy it from Knights in the UK, for example, you can order yourself at the same time something like a KPO 110 or even the standard CRT 9900 microphone for about sort of £11 to £15, and Knights will, for no charge, they will solder on a 4-pin connector that will work straight with that radio, and that will save you the trouble. It's just an easy radio to use if you're coming from an old-fashioned sort of channelized radio back in the day. The 6900 is channelized. Yeah, there's lots of memory options that you only really need to go through them once to get it sort of set up, and it's got some downsides. The channel selector is a little bit sort of loose. I think they could have done better with that, and the clarifier control I'm not a great fan of, as you'd have seen in my other video. But overall, for £150, it gives you a lot of radio, it gives you a lot of bands, it gives you AM, FM, upper sideband, lower sideband, and CW if you really want to get into that. And it's just a lot of radio for the money. So that's the one that I always recommend first. Also from CRT is the 7900, very, very similar power wise to the 6900. It's got a nicer display, maybe. It's more of an LCD sort of C display. There's less buttons, things are a bit more sort of menu based, but it does come with that upgraded, what I would call the 9900 microphone. So I feel that's a better microphone. Price steps up typically around about a sort of £180. Power's about the same as the 6900, so that one might be a radio you want to consider, as long as you're sort of quite happy to get involved in the menu based sort of operating system. Moving up from there, the radios that I've sort of heard are mainly President radios, to be honest. President Jackson 2. Yeah, this is another radio that sounds really, really good on air. I don't think it's as powerful as the 6900. Very good quality radio. I've seen some reviews. M0OGY Dave has done some great reviews on this radio. It looks really, really nice. Downside is the price. We're moving up quite a level now. We're now talking at around about the sort of £300 mark. 300 quid for it's quite a lot if you want to just sort of test the water and sort of start out, but it is a nice radio. Also below that is the President Lincoln 2 version 3. Comes in at about £250. It's actually quite a nice radio. I had one of these. My one wasn't quite right on sideband, and I swapped it out in the end. But this is a nice radio. Certainly got enough power to get you started. Not too menu based. Another nice radio. And then finally, the CRT 9900. Now I've got one of these. You'd have seen them on the video. Comes out about £250. Good side of this radio is its broadcast audio is spot on. It really matches my Yaesu 450 with the standard microphone. Never had a complaint about the audio. It's very, very punchy. It's also very powerful. I think it's probably too powerful, to be honest, although you have got a variable power control. You don't have to run it on full power. But for example, on the sideband, it will kick out pretty much 100 watts on SSB, and because of that it does get extremely warm towards the rear of the radio, and some of these radios can overheat and cause the finals to sort of burn out. So it's not a radio that I'd recommend perhaps to buy second hand, but again, if you don't mind a learning curve, this is very, very menu based. There's very few buttons on the fascia of the radio itself. There is a lot of menu based stuff to go through, so it has got a steep learning curve if you're coming back onto radio, but on the other hand it does offer a lot of power and punch for the money. But if you're going to run these from home, like I know a lot of you are, because at the moment you're locked down and you can't go anywhere in your car, well, you've also got a budget for a power supply unit, a PSU. Now, if you're going to stick with the legal radios, the 80 channel AM FMs, you probably get away with a 5 to 7 amp power supply. Typically anything from about 25 to 35 pounds, something like that. If you're going to move up to the sideband radios like the CRT 7900 and the 6900, you probably need about a 15 amp supply to be safe. You might get away with a 10 to 12 amp, but price steps up again, typically talking about 50 to 70 pounds. So to be honest, while you're doing that, I would recommend that you just go straight for a 30 amp supply. You can buy an expensive, a Linko one for example, that might cost you 130, 140 pounds, but cheaper Chinese versions are available, and I've got a couple of these, they work fine, and that's about sort of 75 to 100 pounds. Another option, if you're coming in on a budget, and I've done this and it's absolutely fine, another option are these LED power supplies. Now just bear in mind, these are switch mode power supplies. They're not intended for use with radio, and yeah, people are very wary about that. If these go open, potentially they could sort of damage the radio. That is an option, but I've been using one for a few years now, and I've known other people that experienced radio people that have been using these power supplies, and they've not had any problems at all. So if you're willing to sort of take the risk on these are a lot cheaper. Typically you can get one for say 15 to 20 pounds. That will fulfill your needs, but of course you will have to do a little bit of homebrew. You will have to put it inside a box so it's electrically sort of safe, and yeah, if you're not happy with that, then it's probably best to stick with a dedicated CB radio power supply. Right, okay, let's move on to antennas. Then we'll just go through the mobile antennas first. The most cheapest type of antenna is one that most people call a springy or a Springer antenna, and yeah, these can come in with a mag mount base, probably around about 15 to 30 pounds. They're okay. I'm not a great fan of them myself. I've talked to people on Springies, and yeah, they sound absolutely fine. I don't think they get you the best range, but if you want a real budget and that's really all you can afford, then yeah, that will probably get you started. Moving up, I mean, if you check out Thunderpole, I've got their own website. I'm not going to link it if you Google it, but Thunderpole do a whole range of antennas that are really, really good, starting off with things like the modulator. I've got 2 of these. These antennas have been around for years, but they still work really well. The Atom, the Red Devil, etc. Again, these antennas are budget, but they work surprisingly well. Prices for the antenna alone, typically 20 to 35 pounds, something like that, but then you just have to allow to buy a separate mag mount, talking probably about 15 quid for that on top, and that allows you just to sort of connect it to the roof of your car, assuming you've not got one of these new flash cars that's all aluminium, of course. If you want to spend a little bit more on a mobile antenna, then the antennas that I've copied before, this includes Steve 318 and people like that, is from the Sirio range. Now the Sirio do the 4000 megawatt antenna. That's been out for quite some time now, Typically I believe that's about sort of £35, something like that. That's a good antenna, that gets great results, that's probably all you need. You can step up to the 5000, that was I think the updated model. I've heard people on that, it doesn't seem to give that much improvement from my receiving end, but it looks nice as well, and I believe that's got a sort of hinge so you can sort of fold it flat, because I think it is quite a large antenna. But anything on the higher range of the Crt mobile antennas, they all get good results. Now you've got another option as well. If you're just going to go out and you're going to park up and go static once this lockdown's removed, and you can also consider just a simple tank whip antenna. I've had one of these for quite some time. Cheap, yeah, £15 to £20 UK. They are 9 foot in length, so it's not something that you're going to want to drive around on top of your car or on top of your truck. But if you just want to go and park up on a hill, slap this on the top of your car when it's not too windy, yeah, they work really, really well, especially for sort of DX and things like that. You can get out a long way on a 9 foot tank whip antenna. Setting up a home base antenna, we'll start off with some of the smaller ones, because I know this is the problem when you first set up. You don't necessarily want to stick up a sort of an 18 foot antenna on a pole, because you're a bit worried about your neighbours, how they're going to feel about it. I totally understand that. If we go through the compact stuff first, I suppose at the bottom of the range you've got a Sigma Excalibur. These have been out for quite some time now. Mixed results on these. I've heard that some people say yeah, they work okay. A lot of people have said no, don't sort of bother. They are small, they're cheap, they're about sort of £25, but I think they're kind of a last resort if you really are worried about sticking up something quite big. Also, Sigma do a dipole. Now I think this is a much better option. This is typically £30 to £35. It's going to be a little bit bigger than the Excalibur, but on the other hand I think it's going to work better, certainly if you can get it up on sort of a chimney breast, or you can get it up on a pole, get it up sort of quite high. It won't stand out as much as a full-blown base antenna, but yeah, a dipole I personally think is probably a better option. And then we come to base antennas. Well, you don't want to spend too much to start off with. You can go for a Crt Game Master, you can go for an Antron 99, a Crt 2016 thing, but you're generally talking £100 plus, things like that. I would honestly keep it simple. If you're starting out and you don't know if you're going to stick with the hobby, I would go for a simple silver rod antenna, typically £30 to £35 on eBay, 18 foot long. Stick it on a pole, get it as high as you can, get it away from the house, and that will give you the best bang for your bucks. They work really, really well. You'll be surprised how well that will work for £35. Just a little edit here, because I forgot when I did the main video. There's also, of course, the portable T2LT antenna, which is a simple coaxial antenna which works on a fiberglass telescopic pole, generally something that's called a kite pole, or even a roach pole, like a fishing rod pole, something like that. That does involve a little bit of construction. You can make them yourself very, very cheaply, just from RG58 or Mini 8 coaxial cable. Can buy them on eBay, cheap again, typically around about sort of £10 to £15 made. You might have to sort of search them out, they're not always on eBay, but they do give you the advantage that if you're worried about your neighbours, you can simply just extend the pole, put the T2LT antenna up when you want to use it, and then drop it down again when you're off air. I've done a few videos on that. If you wait to the end of the video, one of the pop-ups will be the T2LT antenna, so you might want to check that out. Anyway, right, back to the main video. That gives you a basic oversight on getting started. Now there is an outlay here. I suppose if you went with the budget LED power supply and a silver rod, and an SSB rig, you might just get it in at about £200 outlay. That's probably a minimum, to be honest. Now the good thing about this is, and especially at the moment, second-hand CB radios on eBay with this lockdown, where people I suppose are full of nostalgia, getting bored, they've gone crazy, absolutely crazy prices. So if, for example, you bought all of this equipment, you set it all up in a lockdown period, and maybe in a couple of months' time you decided that it wasn't for you, there's no one around, and you know, it's just not not your kind of thing, then if you keep all the boxes and everything in the instructions and pack it all up, you could chuck the whole thing back on eBay, probably as a complete setup with a power supply and the CB radio and the antenna, and you know, you could probably get about £150 back, maybe more, maybe 160, 170 as a complete kit. So you might not lose sort of too much money, especially at the moment with everything so popular on eBay. But if you're looking to buy a used radio on eBay, I would say wait for a while, let all this hype die down, because the prices are just unrealistic at the moment. Whew, blimey, that was a lot of talking. So like I said at the beginning of the video, look, this is just my opinion, okay? These are just radios that I have got particular experience with, and I haven't got a lot of experience on radio anyway. If you're a radio guy and I've missed something out, or you can suggest another starter radio, bearing in mind this is probably for complete newbies, yeah, please just drop that in the comments, and then people in the future watching this video can read your comments and yeah, take that away with you. So that's about it. Yeah, I hope you've got some information from this video. It will save me wearing my fingers out, hopefully, in doing the comments, things like that. And I'd just like to say cheers. Thanks for watching. As always, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Cheers now.
Imaginar